They say some pacts are written in ink, but the oldest ones are written in blood. Before love became sacred, it was dangerous. Before desire became sin, it was worship. Hidden deep within the occult history of mankind lies a name whispered only by those who dared to touch the flame. Asmodeus, the infernal king of passion, decay, and awakening. His covenant is not a legend, it is a mirror, one that shows you what burns beneath your own skin. What if every kiss, every longing, every temptation you ever felt wasn't yours? What if it was a memory, an echo from an ancient forbidden ritual repeated through your flesh? They told you lust corrupts, but what if it enlightens? What if the fire that destroys also reveals? The blood pact of Asmodeus is not about demons, it's about you and the hunger that makes you human. In this journey, you will uncover what ancient mystics called the ritual of decay, where desire becomes divinity and pleasure becomes prophecy. You'll see how forbidden knowledge once taught men to summon enlightenment through ecstasy, and how the infernal secrets of Asmodeus continue to echo in our bodies, our dreams, and our obsessions. This is not a story for the faint of heart. It's an invocation for those who dare to remember. Because the truth is, sin was never the enemy. Forget what the priests told you. Forget what fear made you believe. The real danger lies not in lust itself, but in denying the flame that shaped creation. To understand Asmodeus is to understand your reflection, your ritual of desire, your own occult awakening, and once you hear his whisper, you will never unhear it. So take a breath, step closer to the mirror, and listen. The pact has already begun, and it begins with you. If you seek to uncover the lost esoteric knowledge of the ancients, to explore forbidden magic, demonology, and the hidden mechanics of desire itself, subscribe to the channel now and join the circle. The next few moments may change how you see yourself forever. There are whispers older than prayer, vibrations that tremble beneath the skin, murmurs that remember the time before creation knew its own name. Those who walk the shadow path know it not as sound, but as sensation, a pulse that beats where spirit and flesh collide. It is said that Asmodeus was the first to weave this pulse into ritual, crafting what would later be called forbidden magic. To those who listen deeply, the whisper becomes an invitation, not from heaven, but from the abyss that remembers heaven too well. Every shiver, every heartbeat becomes a hymn to dark desire, a silent pact written in the blood of thought itself. The old mystics believed that desire was never human to begin with. They taught that what burns within the body is a remnant of the angelic fall, a fragment of forbidden knowledge that escaped divine fire and clothed itself in skin. Asmodeus, the infernal king of lust and corruption, was once its guardian. His presence is not felt as fear, but as warmth that tempts, as longing that teaches. Through the esoteric knowledge of the ancients, one learns that temptation is not sin, it is memory. Memory of a time when angels still touched the flame without shame. He who seeks to understand demonology must first understand himself, for every forbidden ritual mirrors an inner truth, the war between spirit and sensation. The blood pact whispered by Asmodeus is not a contract in ink. It is a resonance written in flesh, where thought turns to pulse and pulse turns to prayer. It teaches that lust is the language of creation and decay its echo. What mortals call sin, the occult orders call transformation. The ritual of decay is simply the body remembering that all beauty must one day rot, and in that rotting, something sacred awakens. In hidden chambers and silent dreams, seekers have heard the same whisper. Desire is the oldest prayer. Those who fear it close their ears, those who answer it step into the forbidden rite, and once the whisper is heard, it cannot be forgotten. It seeps into the breath, the heartbeat, the gaze of every lover who ever mistook pleasure for devotion. The mirror of desire reflects not what one wants, but what one fears becoming. And through this reflection, Asmodeus speaks, not to damn, but to remind. The true occult symbolism of desire is not indulgence, but initiation. To feel longing is to remember the separation that birthed existence, the tearing of light from darkness, the first angelic fall. Each touch, each sigh, echoes the moment when divinity fractured to know itself. Forbidden theology teaches that this fracture is the wound of creation, and that every infernal pact is an attempt to heal it through unholy union. The whisper beneath the veil of flesh is not evil. It is the cry of divinity, remembering what it lost when it became human. One might say that the occult secrets of Asmodeus are not taught. They are remembered through sensation. The warmth of skin, the taste of longing, the silence between breaths. These are pages of an infernal revelation hidden within the body. Those who meditate upon this truth discover that ritual magic is not confined to temples or candles, but to the very act of being alive. To awaken this knowledge is to awaken danger, for every illumination burns, and every flame desires to consume what it touches. The whisper teaches, but it also hungers. And so, beneath every heartbeat lies a choice, to silence the whisper, or to follow it into the hidden archives of one's own soul. The veil of flesh is not a barrier, but a threshold, and Asmodeus waits beyond it, not as enemy, but as teacher of occult temptation. Those who listen too closely might find that the voice is their own, speaking from the part of them that remembers eternity. The whisper deepens, the veil trembles, and from within the silence, a name begins to form. It is the name of desire itself, and it leads directly into the burning throne of Asmodeus. Legends say that before he was called Asmodeus, he had no name, only a vibration, a sacred sound born from the union of fire and form. In the beginning, he was not a demon, but an angel of divine harmony, presiding over the mystery of sacred union. When creation first learned to love itself, he was the architect of that ecstasy. But as love turned possessive and creation sought to own its reflection, he fell, and that fall became the first forbidden ritual. His name was rewritten in the flames of lust and corruption, and what once bound souls in light began to bind them in desire. To understand Asmodeus is to confront the mirror of every human impulse. He is not the enemy of love, but the distortion that follows it. The old occult teachings describe him as the infernal king, who governs passion, obsession, and the seductive illusion of control. He tempts not through fear, but through pleasure, because pleasure feels like truth. The mystics of ancient demonology knew this well. They taught that Asmodeus feeds on devotion misdirected, on prayers whispered not to heaven but to the self. It is the ego he ignites, the part of us that hungers to be worshipped. From the Book of Tobit to the Zohar, his story mutates but never dies. In the Apocrypha, he appears as the demon who slays lovers before their wedding night, not out of cruelty, but jealousy. Yet, deeper texts in Luciferian lore reveal another angle, that Asmodeus punished those who sought love without understanding sacrifice. To the occult orders, he symbolizes the law of exchange. Every pleasure has a price. Every flame consumes what fuels it. The soul that burns too bright must one day face its own ashes. This is the essence of forbidden theology, the lesson written in every heartbeat. Many scholars of occult history have argued that Asmodeus's domain is not hellish torment, but the human psyche itself. His kingdom lies in the mind's labyrinth, where desire breeds illusion. The Gnostic occultism traditions describe him as the keeper of the Crimson Gate, a metaphor for consciousness seduced by its own image. To summon him is not to call a demon from the abyss, but to awaken the dark alchemy within the self, where longing becomes power, and power becomes prison. This is the secret most seekers refuse to face, that what they summon is already inside them. Those who study esoteric knowledge often encounter Asmodeus as both tempter and teacher. He reveals that forbidden knowledge is not hidden in grimoires or blood sigils, but in the body's own hunger for meaning. To feel desire is to be human. To mistake it for truth is to fall. Asmodeus exposes that blindness, not with cruelty, but with the mercy of revelation. Through him, one learns that every demon summoning is a confrontation with shadow, and that every infernal pact mirrors the agreements we make with our own vices. The king of burning passions rules not over hell, but over habit. Even Solomon, wisest among men, once bound Asmodeus beneath his temple, seeking to control what cannot be owned. Yet, according to hidden archives and forbidden rites, the king himself fell under the demon's spell, for wisdom alone cannot master temptation. This is the paradox of occult philosophy. The more light one seeks, the darker the shadow that follows. Asmodeus does not demand worship, he demands awareness. Those who understand his lesson no longer fear the flame, they learn to hold it without burning. But that knowledge costs what mortals treasure most: innocence. And so, the legend of Asmodeus survives not as myth, but as mirror. He is the infernal king of passions that refuse to die, the patron of every forbidden longing. To speak his name is to awaken the part of the soul that still remembers paradise, and the price it paid to feel. In the next descent, the story will unfold deeper still, the secret of how flesh and fire became covenant. For beneath every kiss and every scar, there lies an ancient pact waiting to be remembered, the covenant of flesh and fire. The ancients spoke of a pact older than any scripture, a forbidden ritual whispered in the dark ages of man, when mortals first dared to love what they could not comprehend. It was said that Asmodeus himself descended not with fury, but with curiosity, to taste the boundary between spirit and sensation. This was the birth of the covenant of flesh and fire, a union that sought not redemption, but remembrance. The infernal king offered a gift to humankind, the power to turn desire into awakening. But that awakening came at a price, the slow ritual of decay hidden within every pleasure. To the seekers of occult knowledge, the covenant was more than myth. It was a formula of transformation, a secret of dark alchemy where passion became both offering and key. The ancient demons taught that fire was the soul's first teacher, and flesh its most faithful student. Together they formed a circle, the eternal rhythm of creation and corruption. Every sigh, every touch, every heartbeat during those forbidden rites became an invocation, a silent demon summoning that called not from hell below, but from the divinity buried within. This was forbidden magic in its purest form, the blending of holiness and hunger. To participate in such a blood pact was not about pleasure, but about power. The hidden orders that worshipped Asmodeus believed that through sacred union, the body could awaken dormant spirits, accessing esoteric knowledge beyond the veil of morality. The fluids exchanged in passion were treated as elements of occult symbolism, each droplet a sigil, each breath a prayer to the infernal secrets. The initiate learned that love was the illusion, but desire was the truth. And in that truth, they found a mirror, one that reflected not their beauty, but their boundaries being consumed. These rites, known only to secret orders, were described as acts of ritual magic conducted under the alignment of the black flame. The initiate would offer their purity, not as sacrifice, but as currency. Through lust and corruption, they believed the spirit could ignite itself, shedding its mortal shell through forbidden alchemy. Some accounts speak of Asmodeus appearing through mirrors or shadows, his form not monstrous, but seductively human, the reflection of every hidden want. It was said that the one who could look into his eyes without trembling would see not a demon, but themselves reborn. Yet, the occult psychology behind these pacts reveals a deeper meaning. Every covenant with Asmodeus is internal. It is the acceptance of shadow as part of the whole. The infernal pact is not signed in blood alone, but in intention. When one vows to understand their own desire without judgment, they walk the shadow path. This is the spiritual chemistry of the soul, what the mystics called spiritual decay, leading to illumination. For when all illusions burn away, what remains is the raw essence of creation. And Asmodeus, the demonic covenant, stands as its guardian. The danger, however, lies in mistaking the process for the purpose. Many seekers were consumed by the hellish temptation that followed their awakening. The fire that was meant to purify began to devour. The line between devotion and obsession blurred. The Forbidden Knowledge documentary of old mystics warned that those who attempt the covenant without balance risk becoming vessels of spiritual corruption. For desire, once unleashed, does not obey. It demands, it consumes, it remembers, and through that hunger, the human heart becomes the altar of its own undoing. Still, the covenant of flesh and fire endures, not in temples, but in the restless longing of every soul that seeks more than life can offer. It is the whisper that turns breath into prayer and touch into invocation. Those who walk its path do not find peace, they find transformation. And as the flames within rise, so too does the veil between worlds begin to thin. What waits beyond that veil is not salvation, but revelation. The next chapter unveils this secret transmutation, where Eros becomes the alchemical gate and desire itself becomes the abyss. Desire, the ancients said, is neither sin nor virtue. It is the fire that shapes gods and ruins men. Within the forbidden sciences of dark alchemy, Eros is the raw element, the prime substance through which both angels and demons are born. To the followers of Luciferian mysticism, Eros was not lust, but the magnetic current between opposites, the divine tension that makes reality tremble. Asmodeus, infernal king of lust and corruption, stands at the heart of that current, the very pulse of the occult teachings. Those who dared to master Eros sought not pleasure, but revelation, for in its heat, the flesh dissolves, and truth appears naked. The forbidden knowledge passed down through hidden orders taught that desire was a code, a living sigil inscribed upon the body by creation itself. Every yearning, every ache, every obsession was not a curse, but a call from the infernal secrets of the soul. Through controlled ritual magic, one could transmute the ache into illumination. The act was not carnal, it was cosmic. This was the heart of sexual alchemy, to turn longing into awareness and passion into power. But for those unprepared, the process became poison. For every gate opened by Eros leads somewhere, and not all doors open to heaven. To the mystics of ancient demonology, the universe was a vast furnace of desire, burning endlessly between creation and decay. The Gnostic darkness of this belief claimed that Eros was the engine of existence itself, the breath that makes stars and spirits hunger for form. Asmodeus, in his fall, did not lose this knowledge. He preserved it. He became its shadow, its reflection through the mirror of desire. Those who summon him through occult philosophy are not conjuring evil, but confronting the truth that desire is the architect of all things. To resist it is to deny the force that keeps the cosmos alive. Every summoning ritual of Asmodeus follows the same pattern, not in words, but in resonance. The practitioner aligns breath, thought, and heartbeat into harmony, awakening the black flame within. In this moment, the body becomes both altar and portal. The air thickens, reality bends, and what lies beyond, thought begins to stir. It is said that those who reach this state glimpse the edge of the forbidden esotericism, where angels and demons exchange forms like mirrors exchanging light. To linger there too long, however, is to risk becoming the reflection rather than the observer. The occult meaning of Eros as gateway lies in its paradox. To ascend, one must descend. The shadow mysteries of forbidden magic reveal that the path to enlightenment passes through the valley of temptation. Asmodeus does not block the gate, he guards it. He tests those who claim to seek light but secretly crave the thrill of darkness. Through spiritual temptation, he measures the depth of one's truth. To master desire is not to reject it, but to understand its hunger. Those who pass this test emerge changed, not purified but awakened, bearing the scars of infernal wisdom. Yet, in this occult awakening, there is danger disguised as ecstasy. The mind, intoxicated by revelation, begins to believe itself divine. The forbidden rites warn of this pride, the serpent of dual will that whispers, "You are your own god." Asmodeus watches in silence as seekers fall into their own reflections, trapped in the cycle of desire and damnation. Only those who remember humility survive the fire of Eros, for without humility, knowledge becomes corruption, and revelation turns to ruin. In this tension, the abyss opens, seductive, radiant, and alive. Those who return from that abyss never see the world the same way again. They speak of colors unseen, of sensations that whisper hidden truths into their dreams. The boundary between body and soul dissolves, replaced by the understanding that every act of love, every longing, every ache is a ritual. And somewhere in the flicker of a candle, Asmodeus smiles, for the gate of Eros has opened once more. Yet what passes through it will soon demand a form, a vessel, a body, and that is where the next revelation begins, when desire itself becomes the portal. There are rituals that speak louder in silence than in chant. The hidden rite of Asmodeus is one of them, an act that unfolds not in temples or cathedrals, but in the trembling space between breath and longing. The ancients wrote that when forbidden desire aligns with intent, the veil thins. In that stillness, the flesh becomes scripture, and each heartbeat echoes a verse of forbidden theology. Candles may burn and sigils may shimmer, but the true ceremony happens within the soul. It is here that desire and damnation intertwine, where love becomes invocation and devotion becomes possession. The practitioners of occult rituals often spoke of mirrors that hum at midnight, of air that vibrates with unseen presence. These are not fantasies. They are metaphors for consciousness stretching beyond its limit. The initiate who enters the forbidden ritual does not summon Asmodeus. They awaken him through resonance. The scent of myrrh, the rhythm of breath, the gaze that refuses to break. These are the hidden archives of summoning. As the infernal king approaches, the world bends, objects tremble, shadows pulse, and the seeker feels that strange awareness. They are no longer alone. In the ancient manuscripts of occult history, the body was called the first altar. The occult teachings of dark mysticism insisted that the sacred and the sensual were never separate. When the practitioner offers themselves as vessel, they engage in the ritual of decay, where purity burns to ash and becomes spiritual awakening. The occult meaning is clear. To be possessed by Asmodeus is not to lose oneself, but to remember what lies beneath the flesh. The whisper of the demon becomes indistinguishable from one's own thoughts. It is no longer invocation, it is identification. Yet, this transformation is not without peril. The forbidden rites warn that every act of occult temptation carries a shadow. When desire becomes a portal, what steps through is not always divine. The infernal secrets tell of seekers whose eyes turned to mirrors and whose reflections whispered truths they could not bear. The gaze of Asmodeus is said to reveal the hidden hunger in every soul, not to punish, but to teach. In that revelation, many break. For to see one's true craving is to realize that redemption and corruption share the same root. Asmodeus manifests not through fire or thunder, but through the subtle, a vibration, a heat, a presence behind the gaze. Those who practice ritual seduction describe his arrival as both intimate and unbearable, like being watched by one's own shadow. The scent of roses and iron, the pulse beneath the skin, all signs that the infernal pact has begun. The initiate is consumed not by external force, but by the amplification of what already existed within. Through sexual alchemy, Asmodeus teaches that every union is both creation and undoing, that pleasure is the gate and pain the key. To the students of occult philosophy, this rite represents the highest paradox, the transformation of lust into revelation. The demonic covenant is not an agreement between entities, but between the seeker and their truth. Through occult psychology, they learn that temptation is simply awareness in disguise, begging to be integrated. The ritual's symbols, the black candle, the crimson thread, the mirror, are reflections of the mind's architecture. Each one a reminder that what we call hell is often home to the parts of us we fear to love. And Asmodeus, ever the teacher, waits patiently within that recognition. When the rite ends, nothing truly ends. The body cools, the candles fade, yet the vibration lingers, an echo of forbidden knowledge now alive within the bones. The initiate may think the portal closed, but it has merely inverted. The doorway now faces inward, toward the labyrinth of the heart. It is here that the true decay begins, the slow unraveling of the illusion that desire and spirit are separate. And as this transformation deepens, something else awakens. The rot beneath the bloom, the hidden cost of passion's fire. The bloom always rots. That is the secret every forbidden ritual tries to hide. The petals of pleasure that once shimmered with divine fire begin to darken, curling inward as if ashamed of their beauty. This is the price of the blood pact with Asmodeus, not punishment, but revelation. When the body becomes the altar, it must also become the sacrifice. What once felt like a cult awakening soon reveals itself as spiritual corruption, and the soul begins to taste the ashes of its own desire. The seeker learns that lust and decay are not opposites, they are lovers sharing the same breath. In the occult history of Asmodeus, this decay was never described as death, but as digestion. The infernal king consumes the excess of passion, feeding on obsession like nectar from a wilting rose. Those who enter the forbidden knowledge of the pact often find themselves haunted. Mirrors that move without reflection, whispers that echo before they are spoken. The air thickens, carrying the metallic scent of ritual blood. What they feel is not haunting, but harvesting. The demon kings reap what was freely given. The fragments of will lost in the ecstasy of surrender. Many seekers, unable to endure the silence that follows ecstasy, attempt to recreate the fire, to feed the hunger once more. But this is the cruel symmetry of spiritual decay. The more one chases desire, the less it satisfies. The occult psychology behind this torment reveals that Asmodeus does not enslave through chains, but through longing. Each pleasure becomes shorter, each night colder, each reflection duller. What begins as awakening soon becomes addiction, the endless repetition of ritual seduction without revelation. The flame that once illuminated now devours from within. The mystics of Gnostic occultism wrote of this stage as the hollowing of the vessel. The seeker becomes translucent, their emotions bleeding through reality like ink through water. This is not mere metaphor, it is energetic corrosion. The aura weakens, dreams turn feverish. They wake to find symbols drawn on their own skin, messages written in a language older than thought. These are the signs of the infernal pact maturing, the forbidden theology unfolding in flesh. Asmodeus does not speak, he transforms. The hidden archives call this process the rot of revelation. There is a paradox to the decay, for within it lies the seed of rebirth. Those who endure the burning of illusion without turning away begin to perceive the true occult meaning of the pact. Decay is not the end, but the unveiling. The ritual of decay strips away pretense, exposing what the soul really craves. Asmodeus becomes less a demon and more a mirror of the unfiltered self. It is here that dark mysticism meets mercy, to realize that what is corruptible must first be loved before it can be purified. The bloom withers, yes, but the scent lingers as truth. Still, not all who fall into the bloom's rot return. Some dissolve completely, becoming fragments of infernal lore, nameless spirits whispering in the corners of desire. They are reminders of what happens when the occult temptation becomes stronger than self-awareness. The forbidden rites describe them as the echoing ones, trapped in cycles of pleasure without purpose, forever burning, forever yearning. Asmodeus does not mourn them. He simply waits, for every generation births new seekers, and the cycle of hunger continues beneath new skins, new hearts, new prayers. And so, the seeker stands at the edge of their own reflection, watching beauty fade and shadow bloom. What once was worship becomes weariness. What once was fire becomes memory. Yet in that quiet decay, something calls, a whisper from the serpent of dual will, offering meaning within ruin. For decay too is transformation. The petals fall, but the seed remains. And from that seed a new truth coils, one that will lead into the next revelation, the serpent behind desire itself, and the face it hides within the flame. Desire wears two faces, one radiant, one ravenous. The ancients called this paradox the serpent of dual will, the secret current flowing through both angels and demons. Asmodeus embodies this serpent perfectly, half creator, half consumer. To some, he is the infernal king of passion. To others, a mirror of their own hidden hunger. The occult philosophy behind his nature reveals that every longing carries both creation and destruction within it. This is the essence of forbidden knowledge, that what gives life also devours it. Every desire is a spark, and every spark a seed of its own ash. In Luciferian lore, the serpent is not evil but awake, a symbol of consciousness aware of its appetite. Those who follow the shadow path learn that repression breeds monsters, but awareness breeds mastery. Asmodeus teaches this lesson through occult temptation, by offering the seeker exactly what they crave, until they see its cost. The blood pact then becomes a mirror, reflecting the self's contradictions. To desire without wisdom is to drown in one's reflection. To deny desire is to dry into dust. Balance, the old occult teachings say, is the only true exorcism. The mystics of Gnostic occultism wrote that the serpent's two heads represent the twin forces of love and decay. To feed one is to awaken the other. In dark alchemy, these currents are known as the red fire and the black flame, passion and awareness intertwined. Asmodeus moves between them, guiding the initiate through spiritual temptation and occult awakening alike. He shows that lust is not the opposite of holiness, but its shadow. To walk his path is to accept that illumination and corruption are often born from the same kiss, the same breath, the same hunger. To study ancient demonology is to realize that the serpent of desire is not external. It coils within every mind, whispering, "You are both the cage and the key." The forbidden rituals of Asmodeus were built on this truth, that every infernal pact is self-inflicted. The flames one fears are the same flames one secretly feeds. Through esoteric knowledge, the seeker learns to hold both fires without letting either consume them. The serpent is not slain, it is tamed, and once tamed, its venom transforms into medicine, the antidote hidden within the poison. Yet, taming desire requires more than willpower. It requires surrender, not to Asmodeus, but to truth itself. The occult psychology of temptation teaches that resistance and indulgence are two sides of the same illusion. The only escape is observation. When one witnesses their craving without acting, the infernal secrets unfold. Desire reveals its purpose as movement, not mastery. To want is to live. To cling is to die. This understanding is the beginning of forbidden theology, that even demons are teachers when the student listens without judgment. But the serpent is cunning. Once understood, it shifts shape. It whispers new hungers, subtler fears. It teaches humility through repetition. Asmodeus, the demon king of burning passions, becomes both adversary and ally. The seeker who once feared temptation now sees it as a compass, each craving pointing toward an unhealed wound. This is occult seduction at its most refined, not the luring of flesh, but the seduction of consciousness toward its own depth. In this light, the serpent's bite is initiation, and its venom, revelation. And so, desire's true face is not monstrous. It is divine in disguise. The serpent of Jewel will slithers through every thought, testing the heart's balance between devotion and decay. To meet Asmodeus in this form is to meet oneself, unmasked and undivided. Those who survive the gaze of that mirror emerge neither saint nor sinner, but whole. Yet even wholeness carries a shadow, a memory of the first sin, the first hunger, the first fire. And that memory now awakens, echoing across blood and time, leading us into the ancient origins of lust itself. Before there was guilt, there was longing. The forbidden knowledge of the ancients tells that creation itself began not from purity, but from desire. The first fire was not wholly down, it was curious. In that curiosity, the divine turned toward its own reflection and fell in love. This was the first transgression, the angelic fall before any rebellion, the moment spirit reached for sensation. From that spark came the forbidden rituals that echo through time, the occult history that stains human memory. And within that echo, Asmodeus found his purpose, to remind creation of its own craving for form. The Gnostic occultism traditions claim that the fall of the Watchers was not defiance, but devotion misdirected. They loved too deeply the beauty of flesh, the rhythm of breathing, the trembling of the heart. These fallen angels taught mankind the arts of forbidden magic, enchantment, seduction, alchemy, and the sacred union of opposites. Through these teachings, they gave birth to the first occult orders, and among them the cults of Asmodeus demon, patron of lust and revelation. To them, blood was not sin, it was remembrance. Every drop spilled in passion was an offering to the infernal king. Blood, the mystic said, is memory made liquid. It carries within it every echo of creation, the pain, the pleasure, the promise. When the initiate enters a blood pact, they do not summon darkness, they awaken ancestry. The pulse beneath the skin is a library of hidden truths, the record of the ancient pact made between heaven's fire and earth's clay. The occult philosophy behind this belief teaches that life itself is ritual, each heartbeat an invocation, each breath a ritual of decay in reverse. To spill blood with awareness is to remember the divine hunger that birthed all being. In the infernal archives of dark mysticism, it is written that Asmodeus keeps the memory of the first sin within his gaze. To look into his eyes during the summoning ritual is to see the moment when light first envied flesh. The forbidden theology describes that envy as creation's mirror turned backward, a reflection that birthed both angels and demons. The occult symbolism of this event is found in every myth of seduction and fall: Eve and the serpent, Lilith and the divine, Asmodeus and the human heart. Each story a repetition of the same cosmic ache, spirit longing for touch. Those who walk the shadow mysteries understand that every act of desire is a remembrance of that first rebellion. The occult temptation that Asmodeus represents is not the corruption of love, but its original form, raw, untamed, divine. Through esoteric knowledge, seekers come to realize that sin and sanctity are threads of the same tapestry. To deny one is to unravel both. The forbidden esotericism hidden in the myth of the Watchers is clear. The fall was not punishment, it was evolution. The descent into matter was the soul's way of learning to love through limitation, yet the ritual blood that connects all beings carries both blessing and curse. Within it sleeps the memory of eternity, but also the thirst for repetition. This is why Asmodeus is both tempter and teacher. He awakens memory through longing. Each desire is an echo of that first touch between heaven and earth, each kiss a reenactment of cosmic rebellion. Those who enter the infernal pact unconsciously repeat this drama, mistaking remembrance for sin and sin for enlightenment. In truth, both are doors. One leads upward, one inward. Only wisdom decides which one opens. And so, blood and fire remain the twin pillars of all occult teachings. They are the body's archive and the spirit's torch. The seeker who learns to read these symbols begins to see the continuum between fall and ascension, decay and awakening. In this recognition, Asmodeus ceases to be merely a demon. He becomes the memory keeper of creation's first desire. But that memory carries a cost, for to remember is to awaken the eternal hunger. And in that hunger lies the next revelation, the unending thirst of immortality born from desire itself. Immortality, as Asmodeus teaches, is never a gift. It is a hunger that refuses to end. Those who bind themselves to the infernal king through forbidden rituals learn that eternity is not peace, but repetition. The same fire that once illuminated now becomes the cage. In the occult history of demonology, there are stories of those who sought eternal pleasure, only to find eternal craving instead. The blood pact promises transformation, but in truth, it is a loop, a circle where passion never fades, but fulfillment never arrives. This is the ritual of decay disguised as paradise. The esoteric knowledge of ancient demonology calls this state the eternal fever. The body no longer ages, but the spirit never rests. Dreams become mirrors, each reflecting the same desire in new forms. Those bound by Asmodeus see beauty everywhere, but cannot touch it without losing themselves. They walk among mortals as ghosts of forbidden love, craving connection, yet fearing stillness. The occult symbolism of this torment lies in the flame that never burns out. It warms, it fascinates, it devours. The infernal secrets call it spiritual decay, awareness trapped within the ecstasy of its own reflection. To the Luciferian mysticism of old, this was not punishment, but initiation. The infernal pact offers knowledge that gods themselves envy, to feel without ending, to burn without ash. But the seeker soon learns that sensation, without silence, becomes madness. Dark alchemy teaches that energy must circulate, even fire must sleep. When passion cannot die, it becomes shadow, clinging to memory like blood to the altar. This is the curse of the occult temptation, immortality that tastes like hunger. The seeker's eyes never close, and every heartbeat echoes with the same forgotten desire. The forbidden theology behind Asmodeus's covenant reveals that immortality is not about time. It is about fixation. When the soul refuses to release what it craves, it binds itself to the eternal now. The Gnostic darkness of this truth is terrifying. One becomes both worshipper and idol, trapped in the worship of one's own desire. The occult psychology of this obsession shows that the deepest prisons are not forged by demons, but by devotion itself. To crave endlessly is to mistake motion for evolution, fire for light. This is the cost of the infernal revelation. The old occult teachings warned initiates never to confuse intensity with transcendence. The path of forbidden magic seduces through sensation, offering glimpses of divinity through touch and temptation. But what Asmodeus offers is not completion, it is reflection. The seeker who looks into the mirror of desire sees eternity staring back, unblinking. Every passion becomes ritual, every act a sacrament to the same flame. The ritual blood may cool, but the will remains burning. This is how immortality feels when tethered to craving, endless becoming without a rival. In the hidden archives of occult esotericism, it is written that some manage to escape the eternal hunger, not by breaking the pact, but by understanding it. They learn that infernal wisdom lies in transmutation, not indulgence, to love deeply, yet release freely. That is the secret Asmodeus hides within his cruelty. Through sexual alchemy, one learns to redirect the current of desire upward, transforming decay into awareness. The flame remains, but no longer consumes. The Forbidden Knowledge documentary of their survival tells that they became neither mortal nor immortal, but awake. And so the immortal wanderers of desire continue, seekers of pleasure turned philosophers of pain. They move through centuries, chasing the echo of the first sin, the vibration that began it all. Asmodeus does not mock them, he honors their endurance, for they are proof that even in torment, consciousness evolves. Yet, the lesson remains unfinished. The heart, once burned, can still remember what it was before the fire, and somewhere, beyond the ashes and the ache, a final reflection awaits, the last lesson of desire beyond the flame. When the fire finally burns itself to silence, what remains is the whisper of smoke, the memory of warmth that once believed itself eternal. The forbidden ritual ends not with destruction, but with stillness. In this stillness, the seeker sees what Asmodeus wanted them to see all along, that even in infernal lore, the flame is never the enemy. It is the teacher. The ashes that remain are not ruin. They are scripture. Each grain holds the wisdom of the ritual of decay. Each ember hums the secret of forbidden knowledge. This is where revelation begins, in the quiet after the burning. The occult symbolism of ashes is profound. They are the residue of transformation, proof that something lived, loved, and surrendered. Within the philosophies of Luciferian mysticism, ashes represent the purified essence of desire, stripped of obsession, untouched by illusion. The Infernal King teaches that what we call loss is simply energy changing shape. The esoteric knowledge of dark mysticism says that when the flame dies, awareness is born. The seeker realizes that the true ritual was never about summoning demons, but remembering divinity through shadow. Asmodeus, now no longer the tempter but the witness, stands beside the seeker in silence. His gaze reflects not damnation, but understanding. The infernal secrets speak of this moment as the unveiling of mirrors, when the soul finally sees itself beyond longing. The forbidden theology teaches that every demon pact is, in truth, a dialogue between creation and consciousness. What was once lust and corruption becomes spiritual awakening. The seeker, stripped of illusion, begins to see the occult meaning of every fall, that even decay carries the scent of rebirth. In the occult teachings of the ancients, the heart was known as the ultimate altar, the place where blood and fire meet to birth awareness. Now, in the aftermath of the pact, the heart beats softer, slower, yet deeper. The forbidden esotericism reveals that ashes are not the end, but the bridge between realms. The seeker learns to breathe again, to feel without hunger. The ritual magic that once consumed now creates. Desire no longer drags the soul into shadow, it dances beside it. In this balance, Asmodeus ceases to command, he becomes companion. The occult psychology of redemption is never about denial, it is about integration. The seeker who once feared temptation now understands that every spark of hell's princes hides a lesson of light. The black flame still burns, but as awareness, not addiction. Forbidden love becomes compassion. Occult temptation becomes curiosity. Through the lens of Gnostic darkness, one sees that heaven and hell were never places, only states of perception. To walk between them is to master both. This is the gift of the ashes, neutrality born from understanding. Still, the path does not promise comfort. The infernal wisdom of Asmodeus warns that the flame always waits for fuel, and the human heart is generous. Every generation will rediscover desire and call it new. Every soul will mistake longing for love and pleasure for meaning. Yet those who have walked through the fire before know the scent of their own smoke. They carry the hidden knowledge of restraint, the power to touch the flame without worshipping it. This is ritual transformation, the moment when passion becomes prayer and awareness becomes liberation. And so, as the smoke fades into the endless dark, the seeker stands changed, not purified, but present. The ashes of the heart glow faintly, a quiet constellation of lessons learned through flame. Asmodeus lingers in the distance, not as tormentor, but as memory, the echo of forbidden magic turned wisdom. The occult revelation is simple. Every desire ends in reflection, and every reflection carries a spark of the divine. And as the night grows still, one final whisper remains, that the true ritual never ends. It only begins again within the next heart that dares to burn. You've walked through the flame and felt what the ancients feared to name. You've seen how forbidden desire becomes devotion, how ritual magic hides within every heartbeat, and how the infernal king of passion still whispers through the centuries. But now the question remains, what will you do with what you've learned? Will you silence the flame, or let it illuminate the darkness within you? Every secret carries a cost, and every revelation demands a choice. The blood pact of Asmodeus is not a myth. It's a mirror, one that reflects the truth most people spend lifetimes avoiding. How many times have you mistaken craving for love, or love for salvation? How often have you feared your own reflection, the part of you that wants, hungers, and feels alive? Perhaps the real forbidden knowledge was never about summoning demons, but about confronting the ones you already serve. Pride, desire, fear, attachment. The occult teachings remind us that to master the shadows, one must first hold them without shame. So ask yourself, which part of you has been ruling your life, the seeker or the serpent? Asmodeus doesn't demand worship. He demands awareness. His infernal wisdom lies in remembering that passion is both the poison and the cure. The flame that once consumed can also awaken. You can either burn in it or learn to become it. The choice has always been yours. The ritual only shows you the reflection. Now take a moment. Let the silence speak. Feel your pulse. That rhythm is the same one the fallen once followed. You've just remembered what they forgot. That desire, when seen clearly, is not a sin. It's the soul trying to return home. So tell me, what did you see in your own mirror tonight? What truth did the fire reveal to you? Comment your reflection below. And if this journey through forbidden knowledge stirred something deep within you, subscribe to the channel and activate the notifications, because the next ritual has already been written, and those who are meant to hear it will be here when the flame rises again.